Welcome to Balance and Beyond, the podcast for ambitious women who refuse to accept burnout as the price of success. Here, we're committed to empowering you with the tools and strategies you need to achieve true balance, where your career, relationships, and health all thrive, and where you have the power to define success on your terms. I honor the space you've created for yourself today. So let's take a breath and dive right in. Mum guilt. Two words that shred fear into many, many women. I often say that we are birthed, we have a child, and after the baby comes a heavy dose of mum guilt. So today we're talking about 4 main reasons that we have for mum guilt, and I'm joined by the wonderful Jaclyn. Hi, Jaclyn.
Hello. Happy to be here talking about this really popular topic for many women, like you said. And it is almost as if when in utero, when the baby is gestating, it's implanted. This mom guilt just kind of comes with the package.
Yeah. And it's so pervasive and it's so dangerous. And it permeates everything, right down to what you even do with yourself. Can you take care of yourself or not? It's just insidious. So let's talk, Jaclyn, about what actually causes the mum guilt. I guess to start off with, just in case there's somebody who doesn't know what mum guilt is, how would you define mum guilt?
It's this heavy feeling where you have to constantly justify your choices or don't even give yourself permission to make those choices. Choices being, prioritizing yourself. So you either feel heavy if you have chosen yourself or you don't give yourself permission to. And it's just, there's a lot of dis-ease around it.
Absolutely. And I'd add to that what it tends to do in us, and we'll talk about the reasons for this in a minute, but is really end up with this, like you said, it's the heaviness, but I also find that the guilt drives this franticness that can come with it, because it's this got to try to get it all done, because if I'm not doing it all, then I'm not a good mom, and it impacts us at work and with the kids, and it's just everywhere.
It causes a lot of proving and
so much proving. And like I said, the moment we become a mother, there's also a lot of judgment about becoming a mother and what that means. And I guess that brings us to reason number 1. Like, why do we there are many, many reasons for guilt, but we very much are a believer of these 4 key ones. So talk us through the first one, Jaclyn. Why? What's going on here?
Yeah, I think there's a widespread societally accepted expectation of moms to be perfect, to, do all the things, to handle the home, to handle all the admin, handling the birthday gifts, what happens at school, make sure the kids have all the right food, all the right clothes, just everything falls on mom. So there's this high expectation, high pressure, and it's just accepted. It's not the same expectation of men, even if we have partners who might be awesome. It doesn't change the fact that there's this, it's almost like built-in expectation of women. So the first reason for mom guilt is that we kind of just accept it or resign ourselves to that, like, oh, this is just the expectation on me as a mom. And we internalize it and we hold the expectation for ourselves even. We take that societal expectation and then we put it on ourselves. So this first main reason is that we haven't given ourselves permission to challenge that whole trope around the perfect mom. And so the antidote really is to define what being an excellent mom, or the kind of mom you want to be, actually means to you. How do you define that? Which is going to be obviously challenging those super high, unreasonable expectations.
Yeah. And I often say that, when it comes to being a parent, we're expected to parent like we don't work and work like we're not a parent, particularly for women who are challenging the status quo and rising through the ranks at work and wanting to kick big career goals. There aren't a lot of generations before us who got to model what being a parent looks like, who wasn't around all the time. And many of us were raised by mums who perhaps were stay-at-home mums or only worked part-time or worked school hours, because there often wasn't the choice back then. In those of us that grew up in the late 70s or the 80s, there wasn't a whole lot of childcare. And I still remember my mum telling me that when she sat down for one of her first jobs, the moment she got engaged, they fired her because they assumed that she was now just going to go and get pregnant, and she was useless to them.
Wow.
So incredible, societal attitudes have changed, and yet we've not shifted how we parent. What we perceive to be a good mom.
That's right. Yeah. So that's the first one, is actually just pausing and saying, wait, why am I still accepting this outdated definition, and you're the one living your life. You're the mother. So you get to decide what that means to you. What kind of a mom do you want to be without all of those pressures and expectations placed on you?
And I think it's also really important that we, as you said, put those pressures down. And a big part of my journey has been accepting the type of mother that I am. And everybody's different, and that's great. I am not the sit down and play Barbies kind of mum. My girls are mostly beyond that, but I'd rather poke my eye out. I'm not the kind who necessarily wanted to sit and bake cookies. I don't like cooking anyway. So cooking with somebody that just makes a mess. And I used to force myself to thinking that, well, a good mom should want to bake with her kids and enjoy the mess. And occasionally it's worked, but usually it just ends up in children whinging. It's not fun. But I'm also the type of mum that took a 6-month-old overseas for a month. There are a lot of not mums that could do that wouldn't enjoy that. I'm the type of mum that likes challenging my kids in different ways. So we get to go on this beautiful journey of deciding who are we and what actually matters to us.
That's right. Exactly that. And I've had the same thing in my parenting journey with my son is, we tend to compare ourselves, right, to the other moms, and they're doing it like this, so I should be doing. Anytime you hear the should, that's that mom guilt that pertains to where am I kind of weaponizing these external definitions against myself. So yeah, the antidote is to pause and stick to your own definition and be unapologetic about it.
I love that, which I guess brings us on to number 2. And you used a key word here, which we see so often, and that's the word permission. Talk us through what really is this second reason around mom guilt that we've got to overcome.
Yes. So we also experience mom guilt when we make choices to prioritize ourselves. Like we have to kind of defend it or justify it. We have this guilt. If we choose something instead of spending an extra hour of quality time with the kids, or, oh, it's going to be hard on my partner because I'm going to be out, gone for half the day, prioritizing myself. So we have this mom guilt. And what that really comes down to is not giving yourself that permission that you actually get to choose what you want. Like, it's almost like it goes with the first one. We internalize that we don't have choice as moms. Like, we are choiceless. There's a mandate. We must put everyone else first. And there's just no choice. That's it. Like, we are last on the list. And so the antidote is similar to the first one in the sense it's pausing and saying, do I want to keep accepting that choicelessness that comes with being a mother somehow, and give myself permission to prioritize myself, to choose what I want to choose for me, knowing that, I can still be that excellent mom according to my own definition. So it really dovetails beautifully with the first one. And maybe you can even conclude that your definition of being an excellent mom includes prioritizing yourself and modeling that to your kids. So even better, right?
And there's an emotion that when we don't give ourselves permission and we put ourselves last and we think we have no choice, it starts with that we tend to sit in all the time, don't we?
That's right. Resentment. And then we feel guilty about the resentment. Like, I shouldn't be resentful. It's really funny, right?
Round and round in circles we go.
For sure. So the antidote to that one is just acknowledging I have a birthright to choose and to prioritize myself, just like any other human here.
Yeah. And I think one of the best things to role model to our kids is that sometimes, you know what, mama goes first. Mom needs to take care of herself. And sometimes that may have consequences, which I guess brings us on to number 3. So we've got this piece here around we haven't challenged the perfect mom stereotype. We haven't made peace or haven't given ourselves permission to actually own that we have choice, which just breeds resentment. And then sometimes when we make a choice, other people might not like it.
Yeah. So we also feel guilty. Oh, it's now my kid's upset because I'm not there to tuck them in at night. Or, now my partner's frustrated because, they're feeling overwhelmed or whatever. So because of the choice I made. Right. And so we guilt ourselves as a way of, it's like this weird atonement. Like, oh, I did choose myself and I probably shouldn't have done that, speaking to the first 2 rules we just talked about. So now I'm just going to beat myself up because that's what I should do. I should punish myself and make myself wrong and feel bad because at least then that's how I almost justify inconveniencing my kids or my partner, whoever it may be. It's a kind of twisted, but it's what we do.
It's really twisted.
But it's what we do because Because the truth is that we don't just want to be with the discomfort of someone's disappointment because we make meaning about that. So the antidote is practicing being with like, oh yeah, sweetie, I know that you're sad that I wasn't there for bedtime, and letting them have their feelings without making it mean you're a bad mom, and just be like, oh wow, I can understand why you're disappointed or that you missed mommy. What solution can we come up with? So then you start being creative about it, and so you're modeling several things there, right? You're modeling how to be with uncomfortable feelings, validating someone's feelings without apologizing for your actions, right? When that's not merited in that case, right? And you're modeling, creating solutions and modeling that mom can take care of herself. It's lots of beautiful modeling inside of that.
Yeah. And as you said, I know there's many examples in my own life where sometimes the kids have to not come first. And I had a recent example this week when I decided to go for a run. I made that choice because that was what was best for me for the day. And it meant my daughter had to catch the bus to the station instead of getting a lift, which meant that she had to get up several minutes. We're not talking a massive inconvenience here, but she was upset with me. And I said to her, I acknowledge that you're upset and I know that you would rather me not go for a run. But the best thing for me to do, which is actually the best thing for you, is for me to go for a run and you can catch the bus. And she can grumble all she likes, but I simply went for my run, enjoyed it without feeling guilty. I know that I'm doing the right thing because I've given myself permission, because I've redefined what it means to be a good mom. And so there was no meaning. She could grumble all she likes. And I still stand there firm in, I know I'm a good mom. And what's fascinating is the more that you can ground in, I'm a good whatever, good human. This is who I want to be. And she looks at me and she's like, she can't go anywhere with it.
That's right.
So that becomes freeing.
Totally. Yeah. Validating their feelings while also honoring that mom can prioritize herself. And that's not modeled for us. So we get to go first as women. And it's almost radical, right? But important.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I guess this brings us on to number 4, where we start talking about, we often are doing things that aren't really in alignment with who we are or what we really want, perhaps because we're doing it because of things that we should be doing or that society says, or back to those, what the perfect mum should be doing. Talk to us about this.
Yeah. So sometimes we choose to prioritize ourselves or not. But say the example is that we do prioritize ourselves, right? And then we feel guilty about it. And we can actually acknowledge that there was a value that maybe you didn't honor. So perhaps let's say you went away for half day with your girlfriends or something, and then you felt guilty. And this example it might not be that you feel bad about the kids or you're guilting yourself in that context. It's actually that there was a value that maybe you didn't uphold, like connecting with your kids before you left, or having a plan to connect with them or your partner. Like maybe there wasn't communication or an agreement for you to honor whatever is important to you. So if it's important for you to have quality time on the day that you are choosing to, have a half day off to go out with your girlfriends, did you communicate that, or did you forget, or, whatever might have happened? So if that feels like it's missing, that can start to talk to us. And that can come out through feeling guilty, which I think is actually an indicator, a healthy indicator, so to speak, of what I would actually call regret. And I think regret, I like to make that distinct from guilt, because to me, regret is connected to maybe like sadness or something more authentic, like, I'm a little disappointed, or I feel a little sad that I didn't set up a plan to connect with my kids before or after, or whatever the value might be, right? And so that's regret if we let ourselves just feel that sadness, because then we can but we can restore that. We can say to the kids, I realized that I have a strong value of spending quality time with you. I'm so glad I took time with my girlfriends, but I didn't set up a plan or spend time with you beforehand. And I wish I had done that, because that's a big value of mine. And so then we can, restore and have that communication. And I think that happens with regret. We can restore. But when we're guilting ourselves, guilt to me is just pure self-flagellation. It's just kind of this weaponized, I'm bad and wrong, and shaming ourselves. And there's no room for restoration inside of that. You're just bad and wrong. There's nothing you can do to make it better because you're a bad mom. But regret, I think, just again, back to the piece we were talking about before about feeling the discomfort, letting ourselves feel regret without guilting ourselves is a skill. I think we slip into guilt, we collapse into guilt because feeling the regret is too tender. or too raw. So we'd rather beat ourselves up, which still sounds twisted and funny, but it's what we do as humans because we just don't know how to practice being with the tender thing, the more vulnerable thing of the regret of not meeting a value of ours. Does this make sense?
Yeah, it does. And I think, to be honest, so many women, we talk about cultivating an emotional home. And that is that we become neurologically addicted to certain emotions, which all have a signature inside of our brains. And so our brain starts to assume that feeling guilty is our natural state. And then anytime we don't feel guilty, our brain goes, but you should be feeling guilty because you're not feeling guilty, which is completely twisted. But I know this was one of the big things that I've had to shift in time is I felt guilty for everything. I felt guilty for being late, and then I felt guilty for not being fast enough, and then feeling guilty for not being present enough, and then guilty for my team. It infiltrated everything that I did, and it completely robs you of joy, completely robs you of being in the moment. And it's a muscle that no one has ever told us how to build. It's almost put on this pedestal. Oh yeah, mum guilt comes with the baby. Suck it up. It's what comes when you're a mother. But it doesn't have to be.
Right. Yeah. I think, again, the antidote is to say, oh, there is a value that I didn't honor here. I can experience regret and the tenderness around that without making myself wrong, and I can restore it. That'd be something really beautiful to model to your kids.
It would. And this is one thing that we don't really want to pass on to them, is it? We can't imagine passing on to our kids, beating themselves up for every single thing they do, and yet we somehow have normalized it.
That's right. Yeah, we don't want to show that beating up yourself is something normal or expected. Or I think again, demonstrating regret and restoration is really powerful. I think that would have actually bigger implications in the world if we had that modeled to us.
Yeah. Well, if the world is just a mirror and we're busy beating ourselves up, well, then all we want to do is, it's easier almost to beat somebody else up because we're beating ourselves up just as much. And so the world goes round, and this is some of the work that we love doing, is teaching women how to shift their emotional home, how to access more of that joy and that presence and everything that comes in between. So thank you for joining me today, Jaclyn. If you are a woman who is feeling guilty all the time, whether it's guilt for something, whether it's mum guilt, we really invite you to take a look at our website and to potentially book in a call with us if you want to find out how to actually stop feeling guilty, how to have this antidote, which are muscles. And even though some women think that it's biologically wired, it is not. Jaclyn and I are living proof that you can build a muscle, that you can have a toolkit, and mum guilt can be a thing in your past. So here's to more joy. If that's something that you want to do, we'll put links below this episode to book in a call with us and find out. Let's get you more joy. Let's get you more presence, and enough of the mum guilt. Huh, Jaclyn?
That's right. And I just want to say, if you looked at the 4 things that we talked about and you put it together with just looking at the antidotes, like something you can actually action going forward from this, listening to this podcast, is 1, define what being an excellent mom means to you. 2, give yourself permission to choose, that you have the birthright to choose what feels good for you. You have that birthright. 3, practice being with the discomfort of someone's disappointment or frustration with you when you honor your needs. And 4, get curious about if there is a value that perhaps you are overlooking when you do choose yourself. How can you restore that and experience the actual regret and tenderness versus, just weaponizing guilt towards yourself. So that to wrap up, those 4 antidotes would be really powerful shifts and actions to take going forward.
Absolutely. As always, we love stuff practically here. We love giving you tangible ways that you can shift. So Jaclyn, here's to less guilt, more joy. And thank you for joining us on Balance and Beyond. Thanks for joining us today on the Balance and Beyond podcast. We're so glad you carved out this time for yourself. If you're keen to dive deeper into our world, visit balanceinstitute.com to discover more about the toolkit that has helped thousands of women avoid burnout and create a life of balance and beyond. Thanks again for tuning in, and we'll see you next time on the Balance and Beyond podcast.